Tonight, dear friend, allow yourself to settle comfortably. Let your breathing become slow and gentle. Let the noise of the day drift farther and farther away. There is nowhere you need to go. Nothing you need to solve. Nothing you need to achieve. Only a story. An ancient story carried across centuries. A story told beneath forest trees, beside village fires, and within quiet monasteries. A story about leadership. A story about wisdom. A story about unity. And about how the smallest creatures can overcome the greatest dangers when they learn to work together. Long ago, in ancient India, there stretched a vast forest unlike any seen today. The forest seemed endless. Miles upon miles of towering trees covered the land. Their roots reached deep into the earth. Their branches touched the sky. Sunlight filtered through layers of leaves, painting golden patterns across the forest floor. Rivers wound between ancient groves. Clear streams flowed over smooth stones. Wildflowers bloomed wherever sunlight touched the earth. Monkeys leaped from branch to branch. Deer wandered through quiet meadows. Parrots flashed like emerald jewels through the air. And above all these creatures lived countless birds. The forest belonged to them as much as anyone. Every morning, the sky filled with wings. Every evening, the trees became crowded with nests. Among all these birds lived a remarkable flock of pigeons. There were hundreds of them. Perhaps even more. They traveled together. Fed together. Rested together. And unlike many flocks, they were guided by a wise and respected leader. His name was Chitragriva, the Pigeon King. His name meant colorful neck, for around his neck shimmered beautiful feathers that reflected shades of blue, green, and violet whenever sunlight touched them. But his true beauty did not come from feathers. It came from wisdom. The Pigeon King was not the strongest bird in the forest, nor the fastest, nor the largest. Yet every pigeon trusted him, because wisdom often guides where strength cannot. Each morning, before the flock began searching for food, Chitragriva carefully observed the world around him. The weather, the winds, the movement of animals, the behavior of other birds. Nothing escaped his attention. Some younger pigeons wondered why their king spent so much time observing. Why not simply fly? Why not simply eat? Why think so much? The older pigeons understood. Danger often appears long before it arrives. But only careful eyes notice it. One morning, as the sun rose over the forest canopy, the flock gathered upon the branches of a giant banyan tree. The tree was ancient. So ancient that no bird knew its age. Its roots hung like curtains. Its trunk was wider than a house. Its branches stretched in every direction. The pigeons loved resting there. From its highest branches they could see rivers, fields, hills, and distant forests. It was the perfect place to begin a journey. Yet this particular morning felt different. Food had become scarce. The previous day's search had yielded little. The flock was hungry. Very hungry. Young pigeons shifted restlessly. Older pigeons looked concerned. Even the strongest birds felt their energy fading. The Pigeon King noticed everything. He understood their hunger. He understood their worry. A leader must always understand the burdens carried by those he serves. At last, he spoke. "My friends." The flock became quiet. His voice was calm, steady, comforting. "We will search farther today." The pigeons listened carefully. There is food somewhere. Sunlight streamed through the leaves. The forest provides for those who remain patient. The younger birds felt encouraged. The older birds nodded. The king's confidence brought reassurance. Not because he promised success, because he remained calm. And calmness spreads, just as panic spreads. Soon the flock launched into the morning sky. Hundreds of wings moved together. Hundreds of bodies rose above the forest. The sound resembled a gentle river flowing through the air. Below them, the world unfolded like a vast green ocean. Trees stretched endlessly toward the horizon. The journey continued. Hour after hour. The pigeons searched. Fields, streams, meadows, clearings. Yet everywhere they looked, food remained scarce. The sun climbed higher. The air grew warmer. The flock became increasingly tired, increasingly hungry. The younger pigeons began complaining. The older pigeons became silent. Even the Pigeon King felt concern growing within him. Not fear. Responsibility. A very different thing. The day continued. The forest seemed endless. And somewhere ahead, hidden among the trees, destiny was waiting. A hunter was already preparing his trap. Golden grains of rice had already been scattered upon the earth. A net already lay hidden nearby. And before this day ended, the wisdom of the Pigeon King would face its greatest test. For sometimes leadership matters most not when everything goes well, but when everything begins to go wrong. The sun climbed higher above the forest. Its golden light spilled across the endless canopy. The air grew warm. The pigeons continued flying. Hour after hour. Wingbeat after wingbeat. Their formation remained steady, but their energy slowly faded. Hunger has a curious effect on the mind. When the body becomes weak, judgment often becomes weak as well. Patience becomes difficult. Caution becomes inconvenient. And things that normally appear suspicious suddenly seem attractive. The Pigeon King knew this. That was why he remained especially alert. A leader must often think clearly at the exact moment everyone else is struggling to do so. Below them, rivers twisted through the forest like silver ribbons. Ancient trees stretched in every direction. Yet nowhere could they find enough food. The younger pigeons had grown restless. Some complained quietly. Others scanned the ground desperately. One young pigeon flew slightly ahead of the flock. He was energetic, optimistic, and like many young creatures, he believed good fortune was always just around the corner. Suddenly, his eyes widened. Far below, beneath a large banyan tree standing alone in a clearing, something sparkled in the sunlight. The young pigeon descended slightly for a better look. Then his heart leaped with excitement. Rice. Golden rice. Hundreds of grains. Perhaps thousands. Scattered across the earth. The young pigeon could hardly believe what he was seeing. After an entire day of searching, here lay enough food for the whole flock. He immediately climbed back toward the others. "Your Majesty!" His voice echoed through the air. The flock turned toward him. The young pigeon pointed downward excitedly. Food! Instantly, every bird became alert. The word spread through the flock like fire through dry grass. Food! 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 Hungry eyes turned toward the clearing below. The Pigeon King descended slightly. His sharp eyes examined the scene carefully. The clearing appeared peaceful. The banyan tree stood quietly. Sunlight illuminated the ground. And there, exactly as the young pigeon had described, lay an astonishing amount of rice. Too much rice. The Pigeon King frowned. Something felt wrong. Very wrong. For several moments he remained silent. Observing. Thinking. The younger pigeons grew impatient. One finally asked, "What is it, Your Majesty?" The Pigeon King looked toward the rice again. Then toward the surrounding forest. Then back toward the rice. A quiet feeling stirred within him. Not certainty. Suspicion. And suspicion has saved many lives. At last he spoke. "My friends." The flock listened. "Have any of you ever seen so much rice lying in the middle of a remote forest?" The pigeons looked at one another. No one answered. Because the answer was obvious. No. Rice belonged in villages. Rice belonged near farms. Rice belonged where humans lived. Not here. Not deep within the wilderness. The king continued. This forest is far from fields. His voice remained calm. Far from roads. The flock remained silent. Far from people. The younger pigeons began shifting uneasily. They had been so focused on the food that they had not considered the question. Why was it there? The Pigeon King lowered his head thoughtfully. There may be danger. The words immediately created tension. Several hungry pigeons protested. Danger? One laughed nervously. It's only rice. Another added, perhaps a traveler dropped it. A third suggested, perhaps the wind scattered it. The king listened patiently. Then asked, did the wind arrange it neatly beneath a tree? The pigeons fell silent. The rice truly did appear strangely organized. Almost intentional. Almost inviting. The Pigeon King continued observing. Something about the entire scene felt unnatural. The forest itself seemed too quiet. Too still. Yet despite his concerns, the smell of food drifted upward. The pigeons' hunger became overwhelming. A murmur spread through the flock. We need food. We've flown all day. We cannot continue much longer. The rice is right there. The younger pigeons became increasingly vocal. Even some older pigeons began wavering. Hunger speaks loudly. Wisdom often speaks softly. The Pigeon King felt the weight of leadership pressing upon him. This was not a simple decision. If he ignored the rice and it proved harmless, the flock would suffer unnecessarily. If he accepted the rice and it proved dangerous, disaster might follow. Leadership often means choosing without certainty. The king closed his eyes briefly. Thinking. Reflecting. Measuring risk. At last he opened them. My friends, the flock immediately quieted. I still believe danger may be present. The younger pigeons looked disappointed. But I also understand your hunger. Several birds lowered their heads. The king was not ignoring their suffering. He understood it. That mattered. The Pigeon King continued. If we descend, we must do so carefully. The flock brightened. Some began smiling. Others flapped their wings eagerly. The king raised a wing for silence. Remain alert. The birds listened. Watch everything. The king's gaze swept across the clearing below. If anything seems wrong, we leave immediately. The pigeons agreed. Though many were already thinking about rice rather than caution. Far below, Hidden among bushes beyond the clearing, another pair of eyes watched the sky. The hunter. For hours he had waited patiently. The net lay prepared. The rice had been scattered carefully. Every detail had been arranged. And now, at last, the trap was working. The hunter smiled. The pigeons had seen the bait. The flock had slowed. Soon they would descend. Soon they would land. Soon the net would close. The hunter tightened his grip on the rope connected to the hidden mechanism. His heart beat faster. A flock this large would bring tremendous profit. More birds than he had ever captured before. Meanwhile, above the clearing, the pigeons began descending. The banyan tree grew larger. The rice became clearer. The smell stronger. The temptation greater. The Pigeon King remained uneasy. Every instinct urged caution. Every observation suggested danger. Yet he could not ignore the needs of his flock. Slowly, carefully, hundreds of pigeons descended toward the earth, toward the rice, toward the hidden net, toward a moment that would soon test not only their survival, but their unity, their trust, and the wisdom of their king. The forest watched silently. The hunter waited. The pigeons approached. And destiny moved one step closer. The clearing beneath the banyan tree seemed peaceful. Sunlight streamed through the branches. A gentle breeze stirred the grass. The golden grains of rice glowed warmly upon the earth. Everything looked safe. Everything looked inviting. And that is often the nature of traps. Danger rarely announces itself. It hides behind comfort. It disguises itself as opportunity. It waits patiently for hunger, fear, greed, or carelessness to do the rest. The pigeons continued descending. Hundreds of gray wings filled the air. The younger birds could barely contain their excitement. At last, food, after so many hours of searching, after so much hunger. The earth below seemed almost miraculous. The Pigeon King remained uneasy. His eyes continued searching every corner of the clearing. The tree, the bushes, the grass, the shadows. Again and again he examined the surroundings. Yet the hunter had concealed himself skillfully. No movement, no sound, no obvious danger. Still, something deep within the king whispered caution. But now the flock was already committed. They had come too far to turn away easily. The first pigeons landed. Then more. Then dozens. Soon the entire flock covered the clearing. Immediately they began pecking at the rice. Grain after grain disappeared. The younger pigeons chirped happily. The older pigeons relaxed. Even those who had worried about danger began feeling relief. Perhaps the king had been mistaken. Perhaps fortune had finally smiled upon them. The Pigeon King landed last. His feet touched the earth gently. For a brief moment he remained still, observing, listening. The rice truly was real. The food truly was plentiful. Yet the uneasy feeling remained. A strange tension lingered in the air. The forest itself seemed to be holding its breath. Suddenly, a sound. A sharp snap. The Pigeon King's eyes widened. Too late. The hidden rope had been released. The hunter pulled. The mechanism activated. And from above, a massive net came crashing downward. The sky disappeared. Ropes fell in every direction. Before the pigeons could react, the net struck the ground. A tremendous cloud of dust rose into the air. The clearing exploded into chaos. Panic. Confusion. Fear. The pigeons screamed. Wings beat wildly. Birds collided with one another. The net tightened around them. Every movement made things worse. Every struggle tangled the ropes further. The younger pigeons shrieked in terror. "We are trapped. Help! Get out!" The forest echoed with frightened cries. The Pigeon King immediately understood the situation. The trap. His suspicion had been correct. The rice had been bait. The clearing had been chosen carefully. The hunter had waited patiently. And now the entire flock stood imprisoned. A terrible silence fell over the king's heart. Not because he feared death. Because he felt responsible. A leader always carries the pain of those he serves. Around him, panic spread rapidly. One pigeon pulled desperately against the ropes. Another tried forcing his way through a gap. A third beat his wings with all his strength. Nothing worked. The net only tightened further. The more they struggled individually, the worse their situation became. Then came another sound. A sound even more frightening. Laughter. Human laughter. Slow. Confident. Certain. The hunter emerged from behind the bushes. A thick wooden stick rested upon his shoulder. His eyes shone with satisfaction. Never before had he captured such a large flock. The sight filled him with delight. The pigeons froze. Fear swept through them. Now they could see the danger clearly. The hunter walked slowly toward the trapped birds. No hurry. No concern. Why would he hurry? The prey could not escape. Every step brought him closer. The younger pigeons began crying. Some blamed themselves. Some blamed fate. Some blamed the king. Others simply surrendered to despair. The hunter continued approaching. The net trembled beneath the weight of terrified wings. The atmosphere felt hopeless. And hopelessness is often more dangerous than any trap, for once the mind gives up, solutions become invisible. The Pigeon King looked around carefully. His flock was terrified. Their judgment had disappeared. Their fear controlled them. Someone needed to think clearly. Someone needed to remain calm. That responsibility belonged to him. The king took a deep breath. Then another. His heart slowed. His mind became still. This was not the time for regret. Not the time for blame. Not the time for panic. The trap already existed. The danger was already real. Only one question mattered now. What could still be done? The hunter moved closer, 20 steps away. Then 15. Then 10. The pigeons watched helplessly. The Pigeon King closed his eyes briefly, searching for a solution. Any solution. Then suddenly, like sunlight breaking through clouds, an idea appeared. Not a complicated idea. A simple one. Yet sometimes simple ideas save lives. The king opened his eyes. Hope returned. Not certainty. Hope. And hope is enough to begin. Immediately he raised his voice. Strong. Clear. Commanding. My friends. The pigeons barely heard him through their fear. The king spoke louder. My friends. Gradually the flock became quieter, not calm, but listening. That was enough. The hunter continued approaching. The distance shrank. The danger grew. Yet the Pigeon King's voice remained steady. And in that moment, true leadership revealed itself. Not when conditions were easy. Not when success was guaranteed. But when everyone else had lost hope. The king looked across the frightened faces surrounding him. Then prepared to speak the words that would save them all. Words that no pigeon expected. Words that would transform a trapped flock into something stronger than any net. Stronger than fear. Stronger than the hunter himself. The forest became silent. The hunter took another step forward. And the fate of hundreds of pigeons hung upon the next few moments. The hunter continued walking toward the trapped flock. His footsteps sounded slow and deliberate. Crunch. 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 Dry leaves broke beneath his sandals. To the terrified pigeons, each sound felt like the ticking of a clock. A countdown. A measure of the little time they had left. The net lay heavily across their bodies. The ropes pulled against their wings. The more they struggled individually, the tighter the trap became. Fear spread rapidly through the flock. And fear has a strange way of narrowing the mind. When panic takes control, creatures often see only the danger. They forget to search for possibilities. They forget to think. They forget to work together. The Pigeon King understood this. That was why he had called for silence. The flock slowly became quieter. Not because they felt safe. Because they trusted him. Even in fear. Even in uncertainty. Trust remained. And trust is often the first step toward survival. The hunter moved closer. 8 steps away. 7. 6. The Pigeon King knew there was no time to waste. He lifted his head and spoke clearly. "My friends." The pigeons listened. "Do not struggle alone." Several younger birds looked confused. One cried out, "But we are trapped." Another shouted, "The net is too strong." A third wailed, "We are doomed." The king remained calm. He had expected these reactions. Fear always speaks before wisdom. "My friends." His voice cut through the panic. "The net is strong." The pigeons listened. "Stronger than any one of us." Several birds lowered their heads. It was true. No single pigeon could escape. No single pigeon could break the ropes. No single pigeon could lift the net. The king continued. "But we are not alone." A few pigeons looked up. The words seemed simple, yet something about them felt important. The hunter took another step. Closer. Closer. The Pigeon King's eyes moved across the flock. Hundreds of frightened faces looked back at him. Young birds. Old birds. Strong birds. Weak birds. Different in many ways. Yet united by one thing. They were together. The king continued. "One wing cannot lift this net." Silence filled the clearing. "But hundreds of wings can." The pigeons stared. The idea spread through the flock slowly. Like sunlight entering a dark room. One wing cannot lift the net. Hundreds of wings can. The king's voice grew stronger. "We have been thinking like individuals." The hunter continued approaching. "We must think like a flock." The words carried power, because they were true. Every pigeon had been trying to save himself. No one had been trying to save everyone. The Pigeon King lowered his head toward the ropes. Each of you. The flock listened carefully. Take the net in your beak. Some pigeons blinked in confusion. The king demonstrated. He grasped a strand of rope with his own beak. Then he looked around. When I give the signal. His eyes shone with determination. We fly. A stunned silence followed. Several pigeons exchanged uncertain glances. Fly? While trapped? While carrying the entire net? The idea sounded impossible. One young pigeon spoke what many were thinking. Your Majesty. The king turned toward him. How can we fly with the net? The Pigeon King smiled gently. The same way we have always flown. The pigeons listened. Together. The answer settled over them. The hunter was now only a few steps away. He could hear fragments of their calls. He laughed. The trapped birds appeared to be chattering among themselves. Perhaps saying goodbye. Perhaps panicking. It made no difference. The net was secure. Victory was certain. At least, that was what he believed. Meanwhile, something remarkable was happening beneath the net. Hope was spreading. The pigeons began looking at one another differently. Not as frightened individuals. As teammates. As companions. As members of the same flock. One by one, they grasped the ropes. Beaks closed around strands of netting. Hundreds of pigeons prepared themselves. The hunter continued forward. 5 steps away. 4. 3. The Pigeon King's heart beat steadily. He knew the plan carried risk. He knew it might fail, but it was better than surrender. Far better. The king took a deep breath. Then spoke one final time. Do not think about the net. The pigeons listened. Do not think about the hunter. The hunter raised his stick. The king's eyes brightened. Think only about flying. The words filled the flock with unexpected courage. Flying. That was something they understood. Something they had practiced their entire lives. Something they could do together. The Pigeon King raised his wings as much as the net allowed. The signal was coming. The hunter was almost upon them. The moment had arrived. The entire forest seemed to hold its breath. The leaves became still. The air became quiet. Even the sunlight seemed frozen. Then the king cried out, "Now!" Instantly, hundreds of wings beat together. Once. Twice. 3 times. The net trembled. The hunter stopped, confused. The pigeons continued flapping. Stronger. Harder. Together. The net shook violently. Dust rose into the air. The hunter's confident smile disappeared. Something unexpected was happening. Something impossible. The net was moving. Just slightly. But moving. The pigeons felt it too. Hope surged through them. The king shouted, again. Hundreds of wings beat as one. The net rose another inch. Then another. The hunter's eyes widened. For the first time, uncertainty entered his mind. The impossible was becoming possible. The pigeons were not fighting separately anymore. They were fighting together. And together, they were becoming stronger than the trap itself. The next few moments would determine everything. Would the net rise? Would the flock escape? Would unity prove stronger than fear? The answer was already beginning to reveal itself. The ropes lifted. The dust swirled. And beneath the ancient banyan tree, a miracle of cooperation had begun. The net trembled above the ground. Dust swirled beneath it. Hundreds of wings beat together in perfect rhythm. The clearing that had moments ago been filled with panic now pulsed with determination. The hunter stood frozen. He had seen birds escape before. He had seen animals break free from traps. But never this. Never an entire flock lifting the very net meant to imprison them. For a brief moment, he wondered whether his eyes were deceiving him. The Pigeon King felt the weight of the ropes pulling against his beak. The net was heavy. Much heavier than any single pigeon could manage. Yet something remarkable was happening. The burden was being shared. Each bird carried only a small part. Together, they carried everything. This, the king realized, was one of the great secrets of life. Many problems seem impossible when faced alone, yet become manageable when shared among friends. The net rose another inch. Then another. The pigeons felt it. Hope surged through the flock. The king raised his voice. Steady. The birds listened. Together. Their wings beat again. The net lifted higher. The hunter stared in disbelief. The impossible had become reality. The trap was leaving the ground. A few pigeons laughed nervously. Others cried with relief. Some still feared failure. But all continued working. No one stopped. No one quit. The Pigeon King understood that this moment was fragile. Success often arrives gradually, and many abandon their efforts just before it appears. The king continued encouraging them. Do not look down. The pigeons listened. Do not think about falling. Again they listened. Think only about rising. The flock responded with renewed energy. Hundreds of wings moved as one. And suddenly, the net left the earth completely. A collective cry erupted from the pigeons. The hunter gasped. The entire trap was airborne. The net floated several feet above the ground. Then 10 feet. Then 20. The pigeons had done it. They were flying. Not free yet, but moving, escaping, alive. The hunter recovered from his shock and immediately began running. No! His voice echoed through the clearing. No! He sprinted after the flock. Branches whipped past him. Leaves scattered beneath his feet. His carefully planned trap was disappearing into the sky. The pigeons heard him below. Several glanced downward. The sight terrified them. The hunter was still chasing. Still determined. Still dangerous. One younger pigeon began losing confidence. What if he catches us? The king immediately answered. He cannot catch the sky. The word spread courage through the flock. The hunter continued running. But already the distance was growing. Every wing beat carried the pigeons farther away. Every moment weakened the hunter's chances. Still, he refused to stop. Driven by frustration. Driven by greed. Driven by the fear of losing what he believed already belonged to him. The forest rushed beneath the flock. Trees passed below like waves upon a green sea. The pigeons focused on maintaining formation. This was not ordinary flying. Ordinary flight required only personal effort. This required cooperation. Constant cooperation. If even a few birds stopped pulling, the burden would shift unevenly. The net might fall. The trap might tighten. Everyone understood the importance of staying united. The Pigeon King noticed something beautiful. Birds who moments earlier had been panicking were now helping one another. Strong pigeons encouraged weaker ones. Experienced birds guided younger ones. Fear had begun transforming into solidarity. Sometimes adversity reveals strengths that comfort keeps hidden. Below them, the hunter's breathing became heavier. His legs grew tired. The flock continued climbing. The distance increased. Soon the pigeons were far beyond his reach. The hunter slowed. then stopped. Sweat covered his face. His chest rose and fell rapidly. Above him, the impossible sight continued. Hundreds of pigeons carrying an entire net across the sky. The hunter could only watch. Helpless. Defeated. The trap he had prepared so carefully was disappearing toward the horizon. At last, the flock became too distant to follow. The hunter lowered his head. His shoulders sagged. The forest grew quiet around him. The pigeons were gone. Meanwhile, high above the trees, relief swept through the flock. Cheers echoed through the air. Some birds laughed. Others cried. Several simply felt grateful to still be alive. The Pigeon King allowed himself a small smile. The first danger had passed. But only the first. The net still surrounded them. The ropes still bound them together. Freedom remained incomplete. The king understood this clearly. Escaping danger is not the same as solving a problem. Many creatures celebrate too early. Many people mistake temporary safety for permanent security. The Pigeon King would not make that mistake. He glanced ahead. Beyond the forest. Beyond the hills. Somewhere nearby lived an old friend. A friend with sharp teeth. A friend whose loyalty had been proven many times. A friend who might provide the final piece of salvation. The king's eyes brightened. A new plan was already forming. The pigeons continued flying. The net swayed gently beneath them. The forest stretched endlessly below. And somewhere ahead waited a humble little mouse whose courage would soon become just as important as the wisdom of a king. The journey was not over. But hope now flew beside them. And hope, once awakened, can carry beings much farther than fear ever could. The flock continued flying across the afternoon sky. Below them, the forest stretched endlessly toward the horizon. The danger of the hunter was now far behind. Yet the net remained. Its ropes hung beneath them like a heavy shadow. Every wing beat reminded the pigeons of their situation. They had escaped. But they were not free. And there is an important difference between the two. Many creatures mistake temporary safety for true liberation. The Pigeon King did not. As the flock flew onward, the younger pigeons began speaking excitedly. "We did it. We escaped. The hunter lost." Several laughed with relief. Others spoke proudly about their efforts. The fear that had nearly overwhelmed them earlier now seemed distant, like a storm disappearing behind mountains. The Pigeon King listened quietly. He was pleased by their courage, pleased by their unity. Yet he also understood another truth. Celebration too early can become another form of danger. A wise leader remains attentive until the journey is truly complete. The king looked ahead. His sharp eyes searched the landscape below. Somewhere beyond the next hills lived someone he trusted deeply. An old friend. A friend unlike himself. Small where he was large. Quiet where pigeons were noisy. A creature many birds overlooked. Yet one of the wisest beings in the forest. A mouse. Years earlier, during a season of plentiful food and peaceful weather, the Pigeon King had met this remarkable mouse. Their friendship had surprised many animals. What could a Pigeon King and a mouse possibly have in common? Yet wisdom often recognizes wisdom, regardless of appearance, regardless of size, regardless of species. The mouse possessed a sharp mind, a kind heart, and perhaps most importantly, loyalty. The Pigeon King had never forgotten that. As the flock flew onward, one of the younger pigeons noticed the king scanning the ground. "Your Majesty." The king turned toward him. "Yes?" The young pigeon tilted his head. "Where are we going?" The others immediately became curious. The king smiled gently. "To visit a friend." The flock exchanged puzzled looks. "A friend?" The king nodded. "A very good friend." The younger pigeons looked even more confused. None could imagine what kind of friend might help them now. Certainly not another bird. No bird possessed the strength to tear apart such a net. The king continued flying. The forest slowly changed beneath them. The towering trees gave way to rocky hills. The rocky hills gave way to grassy meadows. Streams sparkled in the sunlight. Wildflowers swayed in the breeze. Eventually, a familiar landmark appeared. An ancient fig tree standing beside a small hill. The Pigeon King's eyes brightened. There, nearby, the mouse lived beneath that hill. The king's heart grew lighter. Hope had become stronger. Not because the problem was solved, because a solution seemed possible. The flock descended gradually. The younger pigeons followed without question, trusting their king, trusting his judgment, trusting his experience. As they approached the hill, some pigeons noticed dozens of tiny tunnels scattered across its surface. Small entrances, carefully hidden, easy to overlook. Yet the Pigeon King recognized them immediately. The home of his friend. The flock landed gently upon the grass. The net settled around them once more. Though exhausted, the pigeons remained hopeful. The king stepped forward, then called loudly, "My friend." The hillside remained silent. The king called again, "My friend." A few moments passed. Then a small movement appeared near one of the tunnels. A pair of bright eyes emerged, followed by a nose, then whiskers, then the mouse himself. At first, the mouse appeared cautious. Life in the forest required caution, especially for creatures as small as mice. He peered toward the strange shape covering the grass. A tangled net. Hundreds of pigeons. And then he recognized a familiar voice. The mouse stepped forward. His eyes widened. "Chitragriva?" The Pigeon King smiled warmly. "My old friend." The mouse hurried closer, concern immediately replacing caution. "What happened?" His gaze moved across the tangled ropes. The exhausted birds. The heavy net. The entire story became obvious. "A hunter." The Pigeon King nodded. "A hunter." The mouse's face grew serious. Then he smiled. Not because the situation was amusing. Because he knew something important. The pigeons had come to the right place. The mouse looked directly at his friend. "You are safe now." The words carried confidence. The flock immediately felt reassured. Sometimes confidence from a trusted friend is more comforting than any promise. The mouse stepped closer to the net. His sharp teeth gleamed slightly in the sunlight. The younger pigeons finally understood. A murmur spread through the flock. "Of course. Teeth. Sharp teeth. The very thing they needed." The mouse examined the ropes carefully. The net was thick, strong, complicated. Yet he seemed completely untroubled. The Pigeon King watched quietly. The friendship between them had lasted many years. And friendships reveal their true value during difficult times. Anyone can share comfort. True friends share burdens. The mouse nodded confidently. "I can do it." Relief swept through the flock. Several pigeons nearly cheered. Others bowed their heads gratefully. The danger that had seemed impossible now appeared manageable. The mouse approached the king first. Naturally. The king was nearest. The king was his friend. The king was the leader. Yet before he could begin chewing through the ropes, the Pigeon King gently raised a wing. The mouse paused, confused. "My friend?" The Pigeon King smiled. "There is something I must ask." The mouse listened carefully. For he knew his friend's requests were never selfish. And what the Pigeon King would say next would reveal the deepest truth about leadership. A truth far greater than escaping a hunter's net. The afternoon sun drifted slowly across the sky. Golden light covered the hillside. The pigeons rested beneath the tangled net. Though still trapped, their hearts felt lighter now. Hope had returned. The mouse was here. A solution was within reach. The danger that had seemed overwhelming only hours earlier now appeared manageable. The mouse stepped closer to the Pigeon King. His sharp teeth were ready. His plan seemed obvious. Free the king first. Then free the others. After all, that was how the world usually worked. Important individuals received help before everyone else. Leaders were protected first. The powerful came before the ordinary. The mouse saw nothing unusual about this. It seemed natural, reasonable, efficient. Yet wisdom often challenges what appears natural. The mouse lowered his head toward the ropes binding the king. Just as he prepared to bite through the first strand, the Pigeon King gently stopped him. "My friend." The mouse looked up, surprised. "Yes?" The Pigeon King's voice remained calm. "Please begin elsewhere." The mouse blinked. He glanced around. Then back at the king. "I don't understand." The pigeons listened quietly. The king smiled. "Free my people first." Silence spread across the hillside. The mouse stared, certain he had misheard. "Your people?" The king nodded. "Every one of them." The mouse looked genuinely confused. "But you are their king." The Pigeon King remained peaceful. "That is exactly why." The answer only deepened the mouse's confusion. For a moment he simply stared at his friend. The pigeons remained silent. Many had expected the king to save himself first. Most leaders would. Many rulers throughout history certainly had. Yet Chitragriva was different. The mouse shook his head. "My friend, this makes no sense." The king listened patiently. "If I free you first, you can help organize the others." The mouse spoke logically. "If I free you first, you can fly if danger returns." The mouse continued. "If I free you first, I know at least one life is safe." The argument seemed reasonable. The pigeons quietly agreed. Several younger birds even hoped the king might accept. Yet the Pigeon King gently shook his head. "No." The mouse sighed. "But why?" The king's eyes moved across the flock. Hundreds of tired birds looked back at him. Young birds, old birds, strong birds, weak birds. Every one of them trusted him. Every one of them had followed him. Every one of them had risked their lives alongside him. The king's voice softened. What is a king without his people? The hillside became very quiet. The mouse listened carefully. The Pigeon King continued. "They followed me today." His eyes reflected both responsibility and affection. "They trusted me." The flock lowered their heads. Some felt tears forming. The king continued. "If anyone should wait." The mouse listened. "It should be me." A deep silence followed. The words carried unusual power, because they revealed something rare. True leadership. Many desire authority. Many desire respect. Many desire obedience. Few desire responsibility. Fewer still place others before themselves. The Pigeon King did. Not because he wished to appear noble. Because he genuinely believed it. The mouse looked at his friend with new eyes. Suddenly he understood why so many pigeons followed him willingly. Why they trusted him. Why they had obeyed him even in the middle of panic. Leadership built on fear is fragile. Leadership built on service is unbreakable. The mouse felt deeply moved. "My friend." His voice grew softer. "You truly are a king." The Pigeon King smiled gently. "No." The mouse looked puzzled. The king continued. "I am simply trying to do what is right." The answer touched everyone who heard it. For true goodness rarely sees itself as extraordinary. It simply acts. The mouse nodded slowly, then turned toward the nearest trapped pigeon. "As you wish." Immediately he began working. His sharp teeth cut through the ropes with remarkable speed. One strand snapped. Then another. Then another. Soon the first pigeon stepped free. The bird bowed deeply. "Thank you." The mouse smiled. Then moved to the next pigeon. And the next. And the next. Time passed steadily. The sun continued descending. The pile of freed pigeons grew larger. Each bird that escaped moved aside and waited. None flew away. None abandoned the others. The king had inspired something powerful. Unity. The same unity that had lifted the net now kept the flock together. The freed pigeons encouraged those still trapped, offering comfort, offering patience, offering hope. The mouse worked tirelessly. His jaws grew tired. His teeth ached, yet he never complained. Helping friends made the effort worthwhile. The Pigeon King watched everything quietly. Not with pride. With gratitude. Gratitude for loyal friends. Gratitude for courageous companions. Gratitude for the simple truth that no one survives life alone. Eventually only a handful of pigeons remained trapped. Then only a few. Then only one. The Pigeon King. The mouse finally stood before him once more. The ropes still surrounded the king. Everyone else stood free. Safe. Alive. The mouse smiled warmly. "Now, my friend." The Pigeon King smiled back. Now, the mouse lowered his head and began chewing through the final strands. The last bonds were about to fall. The flock watched silently. Not because they doubted the outcome. Because they understood the significance of the moment. Their king had chosen to stand last. And because of that choice, every pigeon present would remember this day for the rest of their lives. The lesson was larger than survival. Larger than escape. Larger than the net itself. It was a lesson about what it truly means to lead. And soon, as the final ropes snapped apart, freedom would belong to all of them. The hillside had become quiet. The panic of the trap was gone. The desperate flight through the sky was over. The hunter was far away. The danger had passed. Only a few strands of rope remained around the Pigeon King. The mouse crouched beside him. His whiskers twitched gently in the evening breeze. Around them stood hundreds of pigeons. Free. Safe. Waiting patiently. No one wished to leave before their king. The scene itself revealed something remarkable. Only hours earlier, every bird had feared for its own survival. Now they stood together, thinking not of themselves, but of one another. Adversity had changed them, and adversity often does. Sometimes hardship destroys unity. Sometimes it strengthens it. Much depends upon the wisdom of those who guide others through difficult times. The mouse lowered his head. His sharp teeth worked carefully through the remaining ropes. One strand snapped. Then another. The final threads began loosening. The Pigeon King remained perfectly still. Not because he was unable to move. Because patience had become part of his nature. The younger pigeons watched eagerly. Several leaned forward. One whispered, "He's almost free." Another smiled, "Finally." A third nodded. "Our king deserves it." The mouse continued chewing. The rope fibers separated one by one. Then, at last, snap! The final strand broke. The net fell away completely. The Pigeon King was free. A great cheer erupted across the hillside. Hundreds of wings fluttered. Voices filled the evening air. The younger pigeons hopped excitedly. The older pigeons smiled with relief. The Pigeon King slowly stretched his wings. The feeling of freedom returned. The cool breeze flowed through his feathers. The weight of the net was gone, yet what moved him most was not his own freedom. It was the sight surrounding him. Every pigeon alive. Every pigeon safe. Every pigeon together. The king turned toward the mouse. Then bowed deeply. The hillside became silent once more. The pigeons watched. The mouse looked embarrassed. "My friend." The Pigeon King's voice was warm. "You have saved us." The mouse shook his head. "No." The Pigeon King looked surprised. The mouse smiled. "You saved yourselves." Several pigeons exchanged curious glances. The mouse continued. "I only removed the ropes." The evening sunlight glowed softly behind him. "You escaped the hunter." The pigeons listened. "You lifted the net." The Pigeon King nodded thoughtfully. "You stayed together." The mouse's eyes moved across the flock. "And because of that, you survived." A quiet silence followed. The words felt true. Deeply true. The pigeons began reflecting upon everything that had happened. The trap. The panic. The net. The flight. The rescue. Again and again, they realized the same thing. No single bird could have survived alone. Not one. A strong pigeon could not lift the net by himself. A clever pigeon could not outsmart the hunter alone. A brave pigeon could not chew through the ropes. Every step of survival had depended upon cooperation. The Pigeon King smiled. "My friend." The mouse listened. "You are right." The king looked toward his flock. "Today we learned something important." The younger pigeons gathered closer. The king's voice remained calm and gentle. "When danger comes, fear tells us to think only of ourselves." Several pigeons nodded. They remembered their panic. They remembered their desperation. The king continued. But wisdom reminds us that we are stronger together. The word settled over the hillside. Simple, clear, timeless. The mouse smiled approvingly. The lesson was larger than pigeons, larger than forests, larger than traps. It applied everywhere. Families, friendships, communities, kingdoms. Even the smallest group becomes powerful when united by trust. The evening breeze carried the scent of wildflowers across the hill. The forest below slowly prepared for night. The sky began changing colors. Gold, orange, crimson, purple. The younger pigeons relaxed for the first time all day. Several sat upon nearby stones. Others perched beside the mouse. One especially curious young pigeon tilted his head. "Can I ask a question?" The mouse laughed softly. "Of course." The young bird thought for a moment. "Why did you help us?" The question surprised many. The answer seemed obvious. Yet it was worth asking. The mouse looked toward the Pigeon King, then toward the flock. Finally he answered, "Because friendship matters." The young pigeon listened carefully. The mouse continued, "A friend is not someone who appears only during celebrations." The evening grew quieter. A friend appears during difficulties. The Pigeon King nodded. The mouse smiled. "Anyone can share a feast." The pigeons listened. "A true friend shares a burden." The words touched every heart. The flock had witnessed exactly that. The mouse had risked his time, his energy, his safety, all because someone he cared about needed help. The Pigeon King stepped closer. And that is why friendship is one of life's greatest treasures. The mouse chuckled. "Greater than rice?" Several pigeons laughed. The king smiled. "Much greater." Laughter spread across the hillside. For the first time since the trap had fallen, everyone felt completely at ease. The danger was gone. The lesson remained. And lessons gained through experience are rarely forgotten. As the sun approached the horizon, the flock began preparing for departure. Night would arrive soon. The journey home still awaited them. Yet none wished to leave immediately. The moment felt too meaningful, too precious. The pigeons wanted to remember it, to carry it with them, for they sensed something important. This day would become a story told to future generations. A story about unity, a story about wisdom, a story about a king who stayed behind, and a mouse who never abandoned a friend. The evening deepened. The stars prepared to emerge. and the final chapter of their journey was about to begin. The sun rested low upon the horizon. Golden light slowly faded into amber. Amber softened into crimson. And crimson began surrendering to the first colors of evening. The hillside where the pigeons had been rescued seemed peaceful now. The net lay discarded upon the grass. A powerless thing. Only hours earlier it had appeared unstoppable. A prison. A certainty. A symbol of defeat. Now it was merely a bundle of rope. The pigeons looked at it one last time. Many felt surprised by how differently it appeared. The trap itself had not changed. They had. And often that is the true nature of growth. The world may remain the same. But understanding changes everything. The mouse stood near the entrance to his home. His whiskers moved gently in the cooling air. The Pigeon King stepped forward. "My friend." The mouse smiled. "My friend." The two regarded one another warmly. No grand speeches were needed. No dramatic promises. True friendship rarely requires many words. Its strength is revealed through actions. The king lowered his head. "You have my gratitude." The mouse laughed softly. "And you have mine." The pigeons exchanged curious looks. The king tilted his head. "Yours?" The mouse nodded. "Today I was reminded of something." The evening breeze carried his words gently across the hillside. "What was that?" The mouse's eyes sparkled. "That wisdom still exists in the world." The Pigeon King smiled. The flock smiled. Even the youngest birds understood the compliment. The mouse continued. "Many creatures speak of leadership." His gaze moved across the flock. "Few practice it." The pigeons listened carefully. "But today I witnessed it." The king lowered his eyes modestly. The mouse shook his head. "You stayed trapped while others were freed." The hillside fell quiet. "You thought of your flock before yourself." Several younger pigeons looked toward their king with renewed admiration. The mouse continued. "That is why they follow you." The Pigeon King remained silent. Because deep down, he knew the mouse was correct. Authority can command obedience. But only character earns loyalty. As the sky darkened, the time for departure arrived. The flock gathered together. Hundreds of birds. No longer frightened. No longer desperate. only grateful. The Pigeon King spread his wings. The familiar sound drew every eye. My friends, the pigeons became quiet. The king looked at them carefully. Each face carried traces of the day's journey. Fear, courage, relief, understanding, growth. We have traveled far today. The pigeons nodded. We have suffered. Again they nodded. We have learned. This time their response felt stronger. Because learning transforms suffering into wisdom. The king continued. Never forget what happened. The younger birds listened especially closely. For they understood he was speaking directly to them. Do not remember the rice. A few smiled. The lesson was clear. Remember the trap. The flock became thoughtful. The king's voice remained gentle. When something appears too easy, the pigeons listened. Look carefully. The memory of the scattered grain returned. How attractive it had seemed. How harmless. How dangerous. The lesson settled deeply. The king continued. But there is something even more important. The flock leaned closer. The evening sky now shimmered with purple and silver. The first stars appeared overhead. When trouble comes, the king paused. Do not face it alone. The pigeons understood immediately. The net, the flight, the rescue, everything pointed toward the same truth. Unity. The Pigeon King smiled. A single wing cannot lift a net. The younger pigeons finished the sentence together. But many wings can. Laughter spread through the flock. Even the mouse chuckled. The lesson had become part of them now. Something they would carry forever. The king's eyes moved toward the darkening forest. Home waited beyond the hills. The ancient banyan tree. The familiar nests. The safe branches where generations of pigeons had rested. The journey was almost complete. The king turned toward the mouse one final time. My friend, the mouse nodded. Travel safely. The king smiled. And may your tunnels remain free of snakes. The mouse laughed loudly. And may your flock stay away from rice in strange places. The pigeons burst into laughter. The tension of the day finally dissolved completely. For a few moments, everyone simply enjoyed being alive. Then the Pigeon King raised his wings. The signal was familiar. The flock immediately understood. It was time. Hundreds of pigeons launched into the evening sky. The sound of wings filled the air. The mouse watched them climb higher. And higher. And higher, until they became silver shapes against the darkening horizon. The journey home had begun. Yet something told the mouse this story would not end there. The lessons of this day were too valuable, too important. They would live on, passed from parent to child, from leader to follower, from generation to generation, long after the trap had rotted away, long after the hunter was forgotten. The wisdom would remain, for wisdom travels farther than wings ever can. The flock disappeared into the twilight. The stars multiplied above them, and beneath the vast sky of ancient India, the final chapter quietly approached. The night sky stretched endlessly above the forest. Stars appeared one by one. Tiny points of silver light scattered across the darkness. The air had become cool. Gentle winds moved through the treetops. And far below, the ancient forest settled into its evening rhythm. The flock flew steadily through the night. Their wings no longer carried a net. Their hearts no longer carried fear. Only gratitude. Only understanding. Only the quiet wisdom earned through experience. Ahead, the familiar silhouette of the great banyan tree emerged from the darkness. Its enormous branches stretched across the moonlit sky. Its hanging roots swayed softly in the breeze. For generations, it had sheltered countless birds. Tonight, it welcomed them home once more. A wave of relief passed through the flock. Home. What a beautiful word. Not merely a place. A feeling. A sense of belonging. A reminder that after every difficult journey, there can be rest. The pigeons landed among the branches, one after another. Young birds, old birds, strong birds, weak birds, all safe, all together. The Pigeon King landed last. Just as he had remained last beneath the net, he perched upon his usual branch and looked across the flock. The moonlight reflected gently from the colorful feathers around his neck. The younger pigeons gathered nearby. They were tired. Yet none wished to sleep immediately. The events of the day still filled their minds. Questions remained. Lessons remained. The king noticed this. A wise teacher knows when hearts are ready to learn. One young pigeon spoke first. "Your Majesty." The king smiled. "Yes?" The young bird hesitated. Then asked, "Were you afraid today?" The question surprised several pigeons, yet many secretly wondered the same thing. The king gazed toward the stars. For a long moment he remained silent. Then he answered honestly, "Yes." The younger pigeons blinked. The answer was not what they expected. The king continued, "When the net fell, I felt fear." The flock listened carefully. "When I saw the hunter approaching, I felt fear." The young pigeons exchanged glances. The king had been afraid too. The king smiled gently. Courage does not mean feeling no fear. The leaves rustled softly above them. Courage means not allowing fear to decide your actions. The lesson settled into the stillness of the night. Several pigeons lowered their heads thoughtfully. The king continued, "If fear controls the mind, wisdom disappears." Everyone remembered the panic beneath the net. The confusion. The desperate struggling. The king looked across the flock. "But if the mind becomes calm," his voice softened, "wisdom returns." The younger pigeons nodded slowly. They had witnessed exactly that. The king had remained calm. And because he remained calm, everyone survived. Another young pigeon raised a wing. "Your Majesty." The king nodded. "Yes?" The pigeon thought carefully. "What was the most important thing we learned today?" The question lingered among the branches. The moon shone brightly overhead. The forest seemed to pause and listen. The king smiled. There were many answers. The danger of temptation. The importance of caution. The value of friendship. The power of courage. Yet beneath all those lessons lay one greater truth. The Pigeon King looked at the flock. Then spoke softly. "No one survives alone." The words floated through the night air. Simple. Clear. Profound. The pigeons listened. The king continued, "The hunter trapped us together." The flock nodded. "The net held us together." Again they nodded. "But unity saved us together." The lesson felt complete. Like a circle finally closing. The king looked toward the horizon. Somewhere beyond the forest, the hunter had likely returned home disappointed. Somewhere beneath the hill, the mouse was resting peacefully in his burrow. The world continued moving. Yet the wisdom of the day remained. And wisdom lasts longer than events. Longer than victories. Longer than failures. Longer even than memory itself. The Pigeon King lowered his head slightly. Then continued. "One day, All of you will face difficulties. The younger pigeons listened closely. You may face fear. The forest remained quiet. You may face loss. The stars shone brightly above. You may face challenges that seem impossible. The pigeons thought about the net. At one time it had seemed impossible. The king smiled gently. When that happens, the flock waited. Remember today. A warm feeling spread through the branches. Remember today. Remember the net. Remember the flight. Remember the mouse. Remember the courage. Remember the unity. Most of all, remember that no burden is as heavy when carried together. The forest grew quieter. Many of the younger pigeons began feeling sleepy. The long day had exhausted them. The lessons had settled into their hearts. The king noticed. His voice became softer, slower, like a gentle evening breeze. The kind of voice that invites rest. The kind of voice that reminds us everything is going to be all right. Above them, the stars drifted silently through the heavens. Below them, the forest slept peacefully, and within the ancient banyan tree, hundreds of pigeons slowly closed their eyes. Safe. Together. At peace. The Pigeon King looked across his flock one final time. Every bird alive. Every bird home. Every bird free. Gratitude filled his heart. Not because danger had never come. Because wisdom had met danger. Because friendship had met hardship. Because unity had met fear. And unity had prevailed. The king tucked his head beneath his wing. The moon climbed higher. The forest whispered softly in the darkness. And somewhere within the endless rhythm of the night, an ancient truth continued echoing across generations. A single wing may be weak. 100 wings may be strong. But hearts united by trust can overcome even the strongest net. Good night. Sleep peacefully. And remember, when life becomes difficult, do not carry the net alone.